CBS News presents Douglas Edwards with up-to-the-minute developments from all parts of the world. Mr. Edwards.
Good evening, everybody.
Douglas Edwards was the first.
This is the evening edition of CBS News with Walter Cronkite.
Direct from our newsroom in Washington, in color, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Russ Hodge in Memphis, Tennessee, Dan Rather in New York, Bernard Kalb in Saigon, Marvin Kalb in Wellington, New Zealand, and Bert Quint in Quezon, South Vietnam.
Good evening.
Direct from CBS News Convention Headquarters in Miami Beach, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Charles Kuralt in the CBS Newsroom in New York. Eric Severide in Miami Beach, Charles Collingwood in London, George Herman in Washington, Marvin Kalb in Washington, Robert Pierpoint in Washington, and Daniel Shore in Washington.
Good evening.
From CBS Election Headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Charles Kuralt in the CBS Newsroom, Bernard Kalb in San Clemente, Bob Schieffer in Mitchell, South Dakota, Barry Seraphin in Towson, Maryland, Terry Drinkwater in Rockville, Maryland, Jeff Williams in Ayrshire, Iowa, Jed Duval in Cheyenne, Wyoming, Richard Threlkeld in Prineville, Oregon, Bruce Dunning in Cat Lai, South Vietnam, and Bruce Hall in Miami.
Good evening. This was the...
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Eric Severide in New York, George Herman in Washington, Leslie Stahl in Washington, Fred P. Graham in Atlanta, Peter Kalischer in Paris, Tom Fenton in Paris, Robert Shackney in Des Moines. And tonight, a CBS Evening News special report, the energy crisis.
Good evening. In a landmark ruling...
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Eric Severide in Washington, Fred Graham in Washington, Bruce Dunning in Saigon, Peter Collins in Saigon, Bob Schieffer in San Diego, and Richard Wagner in San Francisco.
Good evening. President Ford said...
This is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.
Good evening. Illinois Congressman John...
From around the world and from our headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. For different...
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Japan's Prime Minister came to Washington today. The House of... This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. A judge pronounced... This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting tonight from Tokyo. Good evening. I'm standing on the floor of the brand new Tokyo Stock Exchange. Just about This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. You could hear it everywhere today. People talking. This is the CBS Evening News. Good evening. Dan Rather reporting. The World Health Organization today...
Word that Tonya Harding's ex-husband has made a deal with prosecutors to implicate her. A tragic skiing accident in Germany leaves a champion skier dead. And more aftershocks in Los Angeles, almost 2 weeks after the big quake. This is the CBS Evening News. And this is Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. Olympic skater Tonya Harding's...
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather and Connie Chung.
Good evening. The star witness testifies...
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. The Republican...
This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
A qualified positive prognosis for the U.S. economy. Dr. Greenspan says the patient is recovering. It could be the shortest bout with recession ever. So what's next? Turning on the liberators. Anti-Americanism on the rise in Afghanistan. A security sweep at the Boston airport. 20 workers busted for allegedly lying about their identities. And Eye on America, using fake IDs to board a plane. CBS takes you undercover to put airport security to the test.
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. It withstood a high-tech...
Bob Schieffer, there has been another tsunami scare in South Asia after a huge earthquake that left hundreds dead. We're going to begin there tonight, and then we'll have these stories.
I'm Bill Plant. The president has a new report on his desk about U.S. intelligence, and it's definitely not good.
In the Terry Schiavo drama, the family feud stays bitter right to the end. I'm Mark Strasberg.
I'm Vince Gonzalez at the Michael Jackson trial, where the defense suffered a serious setback.
Eat fat and get skinny. I'm Cynthia Bowers with a diet millions say is working for them.
This is the CBS Evening News with Bob Schieffer reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
Well, this latest earthquake was a big one.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be with you tonight.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
Good evening. We start tonight with the wars in...
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley, reporting tonight from Miami.
Good evening. The voting hit list names American servicemen and women. The Pentagon asked police to protect them. Also tonight, that alleged gang rape at UVA. The police announced the findings of their investigation. CBS News investigates fires in a popular SUV.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
ISIS is taking its war. If it's Tuesday, it's Beat the Press.
I've watched you on television. You're a real beauty. You're a sleaze because you know the facts, and you know the facts well.
Also tonight.
Obviously, there was a street here.
Yes, sir.
Now it's covered in feet of water.
Texas floodwaters reach historic highs. Horses take refuge on porches. The death of a beloved gorilla. Is anyone at fault? Police open an investigation. And the children of gun violence.
When I was 9, I saw my father die.
Talking their way through the pain.
Kids learn how to compose narratives that turn their harrowing personal experiences into recorded stories.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
Today, Donald Trump detailed millions of dollars.
Bipartisan backlash. Republicans and Democrats blast the president over his latest demeaning tweet.
Then how come low IQ crazy Mika, along with Psycho Joe, she was bleeding badly from a facelift? I said no.
no apology from the White House.
He fights fire with fire.
Also tonight, what happens to drug treatment programs if Obamacare is repealed?
Without Medicaid expansion, I probably would be dead.
The new labor trend, Americans changing careers in their 40s and 50s.
I wanted to be in a position where I could never be downsized.
And for sale, 9 bedrooms, 5 baths, 1 giant complication.
You step out that door and you're in Canada, off the property and subject to be arrested.
This is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Anthony Mason. President Trump has turned cross. Wall Street celebrates tax cuts.
A giant present for Christmas.
The implications of a late, last-minute deal and how where you live could determine how much you pay. Also tonight, both sides weigh in after protection for millions of acres of federal land is removed.
This place is so sacred to the Native Americans.
They've lost opportunities to create economic development.
Ben Tracy with more on how U.S. forces stay prepared near North Korea.
We shot up into the air at nearly 500 miles per hour.
Also up in the sky, the first and only supermoon of 2017. And
scared me.
The very delicate dental work taking place on big cats.
Currently, we're doing 4 root canals.
This is the CBS Evening News with Jeff Glor.
And good evening, Wall Street today. On this Monday night, the death toll is rising rapidly from an erupting volcano in Central America and the breakthrough treatment for breast cancer that saved this woman's life. But first, a look at tonight's headlines in 60 seconds.
A volcanic eruption from Guatemala's Fuego volcano killed dozens of people on Sunday.
Rescuers are working to pull people from the rubble.
The Supreme Court has sided with a Colorado baker who refused to make a wedding cake for a gay couple.
The vote was 7-2 in favor of Jack Phillips.
The president tweeted today about pardons. I have the absolute right to pardon myself.
Pardoning himself would lead to an immediate impeachment.
Bill Clinton defending himself from recent criticism of his affair with Monica Lewinsky.
I apologize to everybody in the world.
But you didn't apologize to her.
I have not talked to her.
A man shot in the leg when a dancing FBI agent's gun went off.
The gun went off from someone's pocket?
Howard Schultz, executive chairman of Starbucks, stepping down.
Sparking a lot of speculation Schultz might be running for political office.
Also, the remarkable group of Gold Star kids helping others through their pain.
Does Corbin help make you less sad?
Yes.
Good evening on this Monday night. We are going to be
on the CBS Evening News this Monday. Wall Street has its worst day in months as China hits back by raising its tariffs on the U.S. But the president says we're right where we want to be.
We're in a very good position, and I think it's only going to get better.
As a consumer out there, what are we paying more for?
There are thousands of items on this list. Everyone better be making more money because these things...
Good evening, I'm John Dickerson. As tensions grew today in the U.S.-China...
This is the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
Good evening. It's good to be with you.
This is the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell, reporting from the nation's capital.
Good evening. Tonight is the start of a new era for the CBS Evening News as we broadcast from Washington.